Now, the traffickers, these are people that take drugs. These are guys that are named D-Money, Smoothie, Shifty, these type of guys that come from Connecticut, New York. They come up here, they sell their heroin, then they go back home. Incidentally, half the time they impregnate a young white girl before they leave.
Maine Governor Paul LePage. He later explained that he had nothing to apologize for in those remarks because, after all, Maine is very white.
I was going impromptu and my brain didn't catch up to my mouth. Instead of saying Maine women, I said white women. If you go, and I'm not going to apologize to the Maine women for that, because if you go to Maine, you will see that we're essentially 95% white.
We are super white, you guys, right? So no harm, no foul. I mean, who was offended? Maine Governor Paul LePage is an unusual kind of governor, and that means under Governor Paul LePage's leadership, the state of Maine makes unusual kinds of news. When we last left Maine Governor LePage in the wake of his D-Money impregnating a white girl comments, Maine was on the eve of a big debate in their legislature over whether or not he would be impeached on abuse of power allegations. That effort took up a good chunk of the legislature's time a couple weeks ago. Ultimately, it went nowhere, though. Democrats and leadership joined Republicans to postpone the Paul LePage impeachment effort indefinitely. When the impeachment effort fell apart, Governor LePage called the whole thing, quote, foolishness, but he also left an open question that's of significant consequence for his state. Because in the days before the impeachment debate, the governor had threatened that he would skip his annual State of the State address. He decided that if the legislature wanted to impeach him, then he just wasn't going to do that thing this year.
Why am I going to go up and face people and talk to them in an audience that just the day, a week or two before they're trying to impeach me? That's just silliness. So why don't we I'll go to work, keep working, I'll send them a letter, and call it a day.
Governor Paul LePage doesn't want to give the State of the State this year, not if it means talking in person to the legislature that just debated impeaching him. He raised the prospect that he might skip the whole speech this year, submit it in writing instead. But then the impeachment thing fell apart, and now we're left with this interesting open question. Since it turns out you're not being impeached, Governor, is the speech back on? Or are you still literally going to mail it in for Maine's State of the State this year? Simple question. We reached out to the governor's office to ask. And I got to tell you, we do this kind of thing all day long, getting basic information from all different kinds of public officials. This is what we do. This is a normal thing. This is what we sent. Hi. Wanted to see if the governor's made a decision about whether or not he'll give the State of the State address in person to lawmakers or if he still plans to send a letter. Do you have any information on that decision yet? Thanks. Simple question to the governor's office, right? This was the response we got from Paul LePage's office. Look at this. This is the whole thing. Quote, why does Rachel Maddow have such an unnatural obsession with Governor LePage? Her neurotic fixation on him is kind of bizarre. That was the response from the governor's office. That was the whole thing. It's very strange. So we tried again. Is this seriously your response? Should we take this to mean that the governor has not yet made up his mind? Response from Paul LePage's office. Quote, it's a serious question. Does Rachel have ties to Maine? If not, what's her weird fascination with him? So that's a no? We tried again. Hi. Wanted to try one more time on our question about Governor LePage's State of the State this year. Has he made a decision about whether he will give the State of the State address in person or if he will just send a letter instead? We really are just looking for an answer to that question. If you can't answer it, is there someone else we could try to speak with? Thanks very much. Governor's response. Quote, of course I can answer it, but you first. What's with Maddow's obsession with the governor? Admit it. At this point, you'd start to be a little obsessed as well. So we went back once more to the governor's office. This is becoming a strange interaction. We're just trying to get some basic information about a statement the governor made. We are covering this like we would any other newsmaker or public official in the country. Our obsessiveness is only about the news. And Governor LePage is making it hard to get basic information about the governance of that state, and that is starting to feel newsworthy too. Response from the governor's office. Bupkis, nothing. So seriously, I cannot tell you whether or not Maine is getting a State of the State address this year because the governor apparently finds it very offensive that I would even want to know. So all I can tell you is that the State of the State address usually takes place by early February. But apparently you're a sicko if you want to know any more about it than that. So says the governor of that fine state. Just amazing.